let's get you the latest update as far as the conflict in West Asia is concerned. Yesterday, we were telling you about a ceasefire agreement that's there between America and Iran. But now, within 24 hours, things have changed completely. Iran has decided to close the Strait of Hormuz, which America wants reopened as part of the ceasefire agreement. Now, why is all of this happening? It is happening because the Lebanon front against Hezbollah is still open. Now, Iran wants all fronts to come to an end, even during the ceasefire period, but the fight against Hezbollah by Israel is continuing. And that's the reason why it seems that there is a lot of confusion as far as this truce is concerned. Joining us on the broadcast right now is a special guest. We have Mahyar Tousi, founder Tousi TV. Thank you very much for joining us here on Times Now. He's one of the most watched Middle East commentators on YouTube. Thank you for speaking with us today. Just 24 hours ago, we were hopeful that maybe things will move in the right direction. Maybe there is going to be some kind of a deal and this war will finally end after the 2-week truce period ends. But what do you make of what we are hearing? Israel says that the Lebanon front will remain open. There are strikes happening against Hezbollah there. Iran says Lebanon front was also part of the ceasefire agreement. Then you have America saying, no, it was never part of this 2-week ceasefire agreement.
Yes, I think the reality is that the Islamic Republic, even though they created and funded Hezbollah, they haven't really cared this much about protecting them like this over the last 3-4 years, since October 7th. The reality was that there have been many times that it seemed like they threw Hezbollah under the bus. But somehow, this time, they are saying, well, we really, really care about Hezbollah, and they have to be part of the ceasefire, even though Hezbollah and the Israelis have been fighting for the past few years anyway. And technically speaking, we can say it's nothing to do with the situation inside Iran. I think the fact is that there are different factions in Iran who think that they are all in charge. There is no central command. There is no central leadership. And I think part of the hardline IRGC leadership, they are trying to sabotage the ceasefire or any sort of long-term deal by coming up with excuses. We've had a list of, draft of proposals that were sent via Pakistan. And Pakistanis obviously are not the most professional group of people in the Pakistani government, and they're not the most competent people. So they said that, we may have made a mistake. We gave the wrong draft. It makes no sense. But the Islamic Republic have a whole list of demands. The Americans say we received a whole different list of demands. And that's why the IRGC continue to hit not just Israel, but the Persian Gulf Arab states. In the middle of all this, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, all these countries are getting attacked, which have nothing to do with those countries, nothing to do with America. The US is not doing anything anymore. It seems like there's a chunk of people in the IRGC who want this to continue.
Okay. Do you think this could really have an impact on the next step, which was going to be talks in Islamabad?
Yes and no. Again, I think because there are probably 3 or 4 different factions in the IRGC who are basically talking with the Americans and the Pakistanis. I think the talks, which is supposed to be tomorrow, I think they might still go ahead, but with no resolution. As you said, we got one group of the IRGC who have now said that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. The other side are saying that we are continuing with the ceasefire as it is, which makes no sense. But the Strait of Hormuz is not fully closed in that sense because the IRGC Navy don't have enough access to actually block it. What they do is if any commercial vessel wants to cross it, they threaten to hit it with a drone from mainland Iran. So that's the only fear. And I think at this point, Pakistan were pushed by China to put pressure on the Islamic Republic to do this ceasefire because obviously China has been affected by this and they don't like it.
Okay. As we're speaking, we're getting some breaking inputs as well, and I'd like your reaction on that. Israel is claiming that Hezbollah chief has been eliminated. What does it really mean? as far as this conflict is concerned. I'll still call it conflict now because till yesterday it was a ceasefire, a temporary ceasefire. But now how the situation is, one can confidently say that the conflict is still going on because airstrikes are happening.
So this is interesting because this news could technically now be used as a positive excuse by Israel and the US, because obviously they're still coordinating, even though it seems like, well, Israel is doing their own things and the Americans can't control them. In reality, they could use it as a positive excuse so that the Israelis could say, oh, yeah, we just killed the leader of Hezbollah, so we don't have to hit Hezbollah for a while. Let's just include them now in the ceasefire. So technically, they can now back down a little bit. The problem with that is that the hardliners in Hezbollah and the IRGC in Iran are now going to be seeking vengeance. So is that going to backfire? We're going to find out in the next few hours.
Okay. You have also, analyzed the situation in Iran on the ground. Can you tell us a little bit about how the situation really is on the ground ever since this war began, and also, say, in the last 24 hours? What's the sentiment among people really like?
So the first few hours since the ceasefire was announced, the consensus in Iran and everybody we spoke to was that they were sad, they were terrified, that obviously they've been saying for weeks that the moment we don't hear the strikes, the bombings, we get scared that if it stops, that the Islamic Republic is going to get stronger and they're going to come and target Iranian civilians. But since 2 nights ago, I think people in Iran have mostly calmed down because I think they realize something is happening behind the scenes and this is not the end. It seems like the IRGC are not playing ball, and we might actually see a return of the conflict shortly.
Okay. And also, can you tell us a little bit about Reza Pahlavi going forward in Iran? Do you think he can play any role at all? And what is the sentiment among people vis-a-vis Reza Pahlavi?
Yeah, so again, the people who did the uprising in January, a few months ago, the vast majority of the consensus was that they were out chanting Reza Pahlavi's name, the Crown Prince, as their opposition leader. And obviously there is this chunk of people in Iran who would like to see him return as king. But the actual right now, the majority, they believe that he needs to be seen as the transitional leader. And then obviously there's going to be a democratic referendum and then people can decide. So the support for him is primarily right now as transitional leader. And that's why right now, even though there's technically a ceasefire, people are still staying at home because they are waiting for any order coming from him, because he's their leader. And he was the one, obviously, when he called for people to all come out on the 8th of January, 9th of January, when the IRGC lost their mind. They all listened to him. And he's been telling them, for now, stay at home. It's not the right time, and there will be an opportunity eventually to take to the streets and to reclaim Iran. Okay.
Mahyar Tousi, I'm just requesting you to please stay on with us because we have another important update coming in at this point in time that I'd like to, read out for our viewers. And this is a post, in fact, that has been put out by the Israeli Defense Forces. The IDF eliminated Naim Qassem, Deputy Secretary General of the terror organization Hezbollah in Beirut. A series of terror infrastructures were attacked last night in southern Lebanon. The IDF struck and eliminated yesterday Ali Yusuf Kharshi, the personal secretary of the Secretary General of the terror organization Hezbollah and nephew of Naim Qassem, in the Beirut area. Kharshi was a close associate and personal advisor to Hezbollah Secretary General and played a central role in managing his office and providing his security. Now, Mahyar Tousi, this is the statement, in fact, that has been put out by, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. And I want to understand from you, do you think now with the elimination of these leaders, perhaps Israel can take a break for now in, this operation against Hezbollah in Lebanon, at least for the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, yes. I mean, as I said, this could be now used as a positive excuse to do that. But they have eliminated the number of the Hezbollah leaders previously over the last 2-3 years. And we could also expect a retaliation from Hezbollah, which means that what you mentioned and what I said, that maybe they can take a break, they might be forced not to because they have to then retaliate against the retaliation of Hezbollah. As I said, the next few hours is going to be key. Also, how this affects the Islamic Republic in Iran and how they are perceiving tomorrow's negotiations. Are they going to be so angry about this news that they will basically withdraw from the talks, or do they feel defeated and say, okay, so we have no other option but to actually continue the talks, otherwise we're also going to get eliminated?
Okay. I also want to understand from you about the points that have been made by US President Donald Trump in this war so far. Just before announcing the ceasefire agreement with Iran, Trump actually said that the entire civilization is going to be eliminated. I mean, what do you make of the way he has really approached this entire conflict? There have been dire warnings and then extensions have come in. I mean, what do you make of it? Because the world is also a little confused, because world feels that he's just shifting his goalpost every single day.
Yeah, this is just a usual tactic that's always been done by President Trump, even before he was in politics, when he was in the world of business, or he would call it the art of the deal. It's essentially to confuse the enemy by being seen to be completely chaotic. And that's why I would say never take what Trump says literally, but take him seriously. It's not exactly a sentence that he would give you that will happen. It will be something around it, usually. And there were people who were having
It's interesting that you say never take it literally, but seriously. I mean, there have been so many statements in the recent past and the way they have changed, because some days he said that, you know, we've won the war, and some days he said, you know, this war is still going on. Some days he says we've already met our objectives. I mean, in your understanding, have you, tried to figure out what his objective really was? Because he's been also talking about regime change since the beginning. Has that actually happened in Iran, in your opinion?
So again, what the president says and what the U.S. military objectives are, they were slightly different. So technically speaking, the U.S. military, from day one, the list of objectives were to eliminate the nuclear threat and the ballistic missile program. The Israelis have a whole different objective. The Israelis' objective is clear, to bring down the regime. But President Trump, you're right. The President Trump has mentioned a few times about, oh yeah, this regime needs to change. And over the last few weeks, he kept saying, we've already changed the regime. He also at one point said, we also killed the second regime. And I was confused, like, where was the second regime? Apparently, we're in the third new regime. But what he says is one thing, because obviously he's just trying to confuse everything and everybody, including himself. But the U.S. military objective, technically speaking, has already been achieved, which was to eliminate the imminent threats, nuclear and ballistic missile. So as I said, if you don't take him literally, but take him seriously, he's correct that the objectives have been achieved, but then he adds some extra things to it as a flavor, which make no sense in reality.
Okay, those are the flavors the world definitely does not need right now. Stay on with us. In fact, we have another important update coming in at this point in time. This is a fresh post that has been put out by Israeli Defense Forces, and they are confirming they have eliminated Ali Yusuf Harshi, the personal secretary of Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qassem in Beirut, which we just now told you about. The entire Israel versus Hezbollah battle is intensifying. Hezbollah has now hit back at Israeli force in southern Lebanon has been targeted. This is the fresh update. On one hand, Israel is claiming that close associate and personal advisor Harshi has been eliminated, who played a key role in managing and securing Qassem's office. And IDF also struck two key crossings used by Hezbollah to move weapons south of the Litani River, along with around 10 weapon storage sites, launchers and command centers in southern Lebanon. And in response, the latest update is that in fact, Israeli force in southern Lebanon has also been targeted. Hezbollah says a drone strike hit Israeli forces. This is the update coming in. Let's go back to my guest who continues to be with us at this point in time. Mahyar, now Hezbollah is also retaliating.
Yeah, as expected, which is just going to be escalating things at least for the next few hours. But again, this is about what the Americans are going to do, because the Israelis are obviously busy with Hezbollah. The IRGC are using that as an excuse to sabotage these negotiations. Will the Americans intervene in the next few hours before tomorrow to tell Israel and Hezbollah to calm down? Is it actually even going to work? Because at this point, if Hezbollah continue to retaliate, the Israeli government, they don't really have any other option but to keep hitting. So it's a bit of a back and forth ping pong sort of situation. And right now, the only option will be for the Islamic Republic, some of those factions who are negotiating, to effectively, as I said, like previous times, throw Hezbollah under the bus for now, ignore that, and just talk tomorrow.
One last question before we let you go. You've also been talking about how IRGC factions are experiencing infighting. So who's really taking a call there, and what role is the new supreme leader really playing in everything that's happening, including the ceasefire agreement?
Yeah, I think that the new supreme leader is slightly too busy finding out if he himself is actually functioning as alive. He doesn't actually even know what is going on outside the real world. They are telling us, the IRGC media, that he's alive and he's leading from the front, but we have actually not seen his face. We haven't heard his voice. And there is no statement, nothing to show. I'm not saying that he's definitely dead. We do know that he is very, very much wounded and injured. Right. And he was in a coma. All right. But I'm not confident that he's actually operating.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Mahyar Tousi, appreciate you speaking with us here on Times Now and sharing with us your perspective. Let's now move on and talk about another big story of the day. Viewers, India stands at the cusp of a major political reset, one that could completely redefine representation